Greetings, brothers and sisters. In my last video, I was talking about the evolution of my messaging and how that is going. I am here to read the information that I suppose will be the chapter on the origins of mankind in our history. It is not finished yet. We are quite a ways away from where we are today. It has proven to be quite interesting, and some perhaps controversial, some maybe not. Other sources that seem to correlate to at least parts of it are the Gnostic Gospels, a little bit of the Bible. The Bible's all jumbled up, And Edgar Cayce, his work, and Rudolf Steiner has even accessed quite a bit of this information. And he goes in a very, very thorough mental evaluation of the occurrences. What the Creator Sons are giving me, and the actual ones giving me this first chapter, is Salome is leading it, and then Sananda and Sudevilish they're giving me is more of a beat-by-beat major event happening that is leading us to now. Yeah, I've tried to read it twice and film it twice, and it just hasn't happened, so maybe this is the time. Many things are going on after last night. Yesterday was the first time I spoke the words of my higher self without relying on the pendulum. I started like normal with the pendulum, and then the words started coming before I could move the pendulum. And I just kept it going, and 8 pages later. It's amazing. Now, what I would do on occasion was to check my words. If I hit a word, I would just check and make sure I'm right. It'll spin on the letter of that word if I am speaking the correct word. If not, it would not, and I would have to recheck the words I'm getting. Or not that I'm getting, the words that I'm trying to use. Occasionally, I had trouble figuring out which word it was. The correct concept was already there. I just had to verify that I had the right word, or that I was saying it the way they wanted it said. But it went really smoothly, except for the fact that Catherine got hand cramps because she could not keep up and had to resort to using some shorthand tactics, which I'm not really a fan of, but she had to do what she had to do, because I began to speak the words as quickly as I'm saying them to you, maybe even a little faster. So it appears as though what is happening is that through the use of the pendulum for me in meditation, that the channel between me and my higher self is just opening, and we are getting closer and closer together. As a result, I am experiencing a lot of different changes in my life. The way I think, my needs as far as food go. I mentioned in my last video I'm vegetarian, and I drink tons of water. One of the more interesting occurrences was that last night, in any of my dreams, I would wake up and I would have the meaning of the dream specifically. And this was just amazing. And anything I thought, I would have information just... And I told you in my last video, if you were kind enough to watch it, I had this circle here, this tingling, and it's like this. It's like this is where my higher self is, or the part of me that did not incarnate. I just feel it right here, in which before I could feel that, we found out that my forehead is starting to come forward a little bit. It's changing shape just like the back of my head did last summer. So things are happening on a quick level. And the reason I let you know is that there's a good chance you may be experiencing them yourself and don't even know it. So pay attention to things that are going on around you and within you. For the ascension is near, and if you have assimilated love and forgiveness into your being to the core, you are going to more rapidly change and adapt to the new energies. Those who have not embraced love and forgiveness will have to learn quickly and experience some more like turbulence than those who have. And if you're not at all interested in love and forgiveness and have chosen to seek only to serve the ego and the self, it's going to be rough. It's going to be a rough ride. Anyways, so they give us a few sentences in this material to kind of set the stage for what I take it to be a 13-chapter book. What I get is that this first chapter, given by Saul Sananda Stabilish, is the origins and history, and I suppose it will lead up to a certain place in our timeline. And then each creator's son has agreed to give their own chapter, and I'm sure that that will be about the ray of creation and the spiritual concept that goes with that ray of creation that they're kind of in charge of. So that's kind of where it's at right now. And I'm going to begin. I'm going to read the little intro, and then we'll begin with the beginning. So just bear with me. Decide what you will. It is a lot of material, and it's nowhere near finished. But I think stuff like this, yes, I'm probably going to make a book, but not everybody can buy a book, and so I want to make this information available to all who are ready to receive it, regardless of their financial status. So I will be updating my blog with this information, and I will be updating videos as we get, a substantial amount of information each reading to post or publish, so that it is there for those who want to come back to it time and again. Alright, and here we go with the intro. In our humility and isolation, we work to bravely nudge energies to pull man from darkness into the light of God. From that skewed, under a millennium of moons, the truth of all that was. History tells one story, and time tells another. Man thinks it knows the end of true darkness, but there is much that is deceiving and controlling man in ways not known. End of intro. In the beginning, there was God. He sought to express himself, and in so doing, he made for himself an era. Liking what he saw, he then wanted to express himself as another being. He then gave of himself, and as he bestowed his life, another came into existence. This is who we call Sananda. He found Sananda to be learning of his own ability to create. God found this to be good and created more souls to experience his home with. In peace, God was. His home is called Eden. We were those first 12 souls that God created. In an exchange of energies, we brought forth what is called the universe. And the Sananda was the architect of this particular universe. Many universes were then brought forth from us. We then created forms that could be filled with our life force. These forms were offered to God as a token of our love. Down to the earth we came, for we were excited to witness our creations and to please our Father. We inadvertently became stuck in our forms. As God saw this, he became saddened. He then sent the Holy Spirit to free us. When we were freed, God was joyful, for his sons had returned. Immediately we worked to form more habitable forms for life to fill. Life came from our life force and God's grace. We used our own ability to create life to offer our Father pleasure, going to and from earth as a living creation of our individual uniqueness. Let me just say, when they are using the term earth, I believe they are referring to planets in general, not necessarily our particular planet, and that concept. Now let us continue. Our flesh was not like the flesh of mankind. It was as filaments of multicolored lights. We could travel to the furthest reaches of our thoughts, hidden deep in our blue minds. Even in our formative ages, we created many universes that still are some of the most beautiful. Playing as children, we began creating other new forms for life, and in so doing there came to be archangels. These forms of life were our sons and daughters, and that word of our language, begat. All that plants life comes from our words. It then evolved into the pieces that together come and have given pyramids their power. As spheres bring solemn protection, the pyramids will raise earnestly the energies of the entities invoking its shape. Using sacred geometry, we brought new beings into being. It was these beings that are called Elohim, and plural they be. It was the Elohim who formed the worlds that are in lower levels of the vibrating energies of the cosmos. On watch are the Elohim to halt the return of Christ, for all of their work is for their own need to be the power and is leading man to doom. Sludgingly and hurried are many working to prevent the awakening of mankind, trying all ways to keep dominion over man, that even thinking of losing their power, that destroying the world would be acceptable. As thick and heavy as iron shackles, darkness weighs down all that is of the Father. His time has taught the power of love will triumph. Plio, now this is the name we were given, but it is also known as Pluto. Now, just for us, I'm going to use the name Pluto from now on. And I will add that Pluto being downgraded from a planet to a moon was very symbolic of what is about to happen. So, let us commence. Pluto, from Vioa, led a group of Elohim to the main world of your solar system, and created man in his image. Pluto was not involved in understanding his creations. He was an angry soul, because he believed that there was no other father outside of himself. Opening in apparent joy, he was displeased in his lack of plotting the sailing of the ship that brought them to this planet. Thunder and lightning struck his ship, causing him to not be able to leave. Brought only enough to survive 957,000 years from his home world. An audit of the books of the time will muddy up the false teachings of the past. Plaguing Pluto was not having made a better kind of man to serve his raging desires for bones of sea creatures. In kindness he allowed many of the servants to make an upper part of his home into a cell for living. In those days it was uncommon for servants to dwell in the home of their master. Needing another 100 servants, he knew many females to impregnate, and have children to be servants as well. Working for nothing for 50,000 years, mankind grew in ever-oxidizing resentment on realization that a ghastly vein were the demands upon their backs. An uprising took place. I'm sorry, let me redo that sentence. It's a long one. Working for nothing for 50,000 years, mankind grew in ever-oxidizing resentment on realization that a ghastly vain were the demands upon their backs. An uprising took place. Fights broke out over treatment of the servants. Trapping the Elohim in a building, the servants set fire to it, killing the Elohim. Then the fire spread, destroying flammable buildings and all of the homes of the Elohim. The Elohim gone, man was able to evolve and receive life energy from us. Man would come to life through our breathing the breath of life into them. Talking must not about the deeds done at the hands of the Elohim to early man. So much suffering did they bring to the many people in the world. The Elohim are not all bringers of darkness. There are some that strive to bring goodness to the world. These souls have followed in the footsteps of the heavenly archangels that have served man for endless ages. Nary has a person that has not seen an angel in the guise of a human. As mankind evolved, there were many wandering the earth as men and women. The angels helped early man by teaching and giving them the flame for staying warm and preparing the foods. Mankind then flourished in the world. Many new souls came to be during these days. Man did then decide to bring oil and incense to be an offering to us. We found this to be very good and offered to create for them a more apt form to inhabit. These new forms offered man the opportunity to postulate and have children of their own. Now these amazing new bodies were that which you call Adam and Eve. In the first bodies did Sananda and Salome and Sudevilish choose to incarnate. As in the days of our youth when we were stuck in flesh, we willingly chose to subject ourselves to the incarnational process that all men must endure. The three of us surrendered our home to be the shepherds of this flock called mankind. We have been working to repair the damage of the Elohim that did first cause so much pain. As time marched on, we shouldered the weight of the world to show our love for mankind. Sometimes we missed the mark and caused more fear, but in most times we achieved many good accomplishments. The emerging varieties of man was the result of benevolent beings from other worlds trying to give man more tools for spiritual growth. One of the first groups to offer assistance was the demigods, that which you call the Roman gods. These beings were from a world that is called Logos. They gave mankind the knowledge of numbers. In our history as the shepherds of man, we observed comets that destroyed all life on the planet. But there were many who were saved through the efforts of the groups that were watching over the human race. Other groups that offered support were the Udlad race. Moons were brought into the solar system to stabilize weather conditions in your atmosphere. It was the Udlads that brought in the moons. Another group that assisted was the Arcturians. The Arcturians developed the bodies of what is known as modern man. The Arcturians were also the ones to make music for the first time on the world. Another to lend assistance was the Nordic peoples. It was these people that you know as Norse gods. They gave man knowledge of blacksmithing. Man then could forge metals and iron with this wisdom. The Pleiadians brought nothing but violence and agony to your planet. The Pleiadians were the ones to develop money for ever enslaving mankind to it. It was also the Pleiadians who established the systems for government and authority. They, in many cases, however, were not negatively motivated. Some are messengers of us. These Pleiadians have been involved in trying to destroy the systems created by the negatively motivated groups. Many of the negative groups work in accordance with the Elohim and continue to work to prevent Christ from returning. These negative groups cannot directly interfere. Incarnate they must, just as any being. Rules were set when man became living souls that no being higher than third density could affect man's evolution. In some cases it was allowed for a higher being to assist directly when our Father agreed. Beings that you know as Ra and Prometheus were examples of 8th density beings that were permitted to be here in their true form. In rare cases, some higher density beings that were negative managed to make an appearance by infusing their life force with the demonic soul. Demonic souls are the offspring of the fallen angels that chose to abandon their God and follow the Elohim. Wow! And there's so much more. During the time of what is known as the creation of Adam and Eve, the Elohim managed to convince a third of the angels to follow them and abandon the Father. It was a travesty that still haunts the halls of the Father's house. We still mourn their loss as they were our sons and daughters. It pains us to know that they are suffering as a result of their decisions. Many souls have had to endure much misery at the hands of such angst brought on by these fallen souls. We have worked to redeem those who have asked forgiveness for their wicked ways. Some of them have even joined in the quest to see the Messiah return to the world. And so it is that there are demonic souls on your world trying to inflict harm on God's children. But for every demonic soul, there are double the angels to combat such acts of terror and fear. So much that could have brought destruction to your world has been averted by those protectors of God's children. I do want to make a note that we are now into yesterday's material, and it's a lot. And occasionally Catherine had to use some shorthand, so if I stutter or stumble a little bit, this is why. Just bear with me. Know and be resolute in the good knowledge that the heavenly hosts are diligent in their service to mankind. And so it was in the days of Adam and Eve that the angels did fall, causing so much misery and horror. Shortly after the fall, Adam was deceived by the entity known as Khan. Khan was a fallen angel in the service of Uad, Lord of darkness and death. Uad was reigning when the blessed Yahweh brought from Mars the Hebrew nation. It was Yahweh who was Lord of the Hebrews. Benevolent and kind he was, and his people loved him. One day Yahweh was out among the vineyards, and he was captured by the followers of Uad. Rhea, one of Uad's wives, developed an attraction to the mighty Yahweh. Rather than kill him, as she was commanded, she kept him prisoner in her chambers. This angered the followers of Uad, for they found this to be an offense to their customs. In retaliation, the followers of Uad sought to attack the followers of Yahweh. War broke out in the land known as Judea. It was Uad's followers that won this war. The Hebrew nation was spread out across the globe. The group known as the Lost Tribe of Israel traveled to the Americas, establishing the Native American Empire, for this is the tie that connects all the tribes of the Americas. The groups that remained then spread out into the lands now known as Europe and Asia. It is these tribes of Israel that populated the entire globe. Many people to this day owe their heritage to the Hebrews from Mars. And so after the war, darkness blanketed the whole world, causing much misery and despair. When Adam was deceived by Khan, he brought sin, as you call it, into the mind of mankind. Eve had no part in condemning man, yet she has suffered in the blame of her mate. The sin of Adam was adultery with a woman from the caste of the early humans. This served to retard the gift of life in modern man. It brought us great sorrow to have to witness the sacrificing of our gift for just a moment of pleasure. It was Sananda who committed this act of defiance. This is the reason that he was nailed to a cross. It was his debt to mankind to repay. Sadness filled the halls of heaven when Adam made his most grievous choice. But the Father then decided to make whole his children through the intercession of the Christ mind. And so it was that when Adam fell, the Father created the Christ mind to restore mankind to its rightful place. Eve has suffered much, yet even to this day does she work to restore what Adam brought asunder. Eve is and was that which you call the twin soul of Sananda. An angel she is, first formed from Sananda's desiring to have a mate. She is on your planet today, serving in ways unknown to herself. Nevertheless, her workings are helping to establish the kingdom of God on earth as it is in heaven. In the years after Adam's fall, many sons and daughters were born to Eve, the mother of modern man. Abel was first among the many children. It was his offering of oil and incense that pleased us in the halls of heaven. Out of jealousy did Cain murder his brother. Cain was enraged, but had not intended to kill Abel. Great sorrow fell over his actions that he banished himself from the sight of the Father in heaven. He, using dark magic, crafted a symbol that would hide him from us. It was Cain who established the first center for commerce and trade. Brought he many good things out of repentance for his deeds. Abel was not the first to be murdered, but he was the first to experience what you call heaven, for his offering pleased us so that for him we crafted an abode like no other. To this day, he has been spared the karmic bonds of reincarnation time and again. He, Abel, is soon to walk among you again, not as a man, but as an avatar for the Father. He will be with the Son of Man, bringing salvation and grace to the peoples of your world. Understand that Cain is not the monster your holy scriptures paint him to be. To this day does he dwell in our Father's house. God is a God of mercy and forgiveness. No amount of sin can pluck you from the hands that created all that is. As Cain built cities of splendor, the other sons and daughters of Eve did too build great and mighty testaments to their faith in God. Among these testaments are the great pyramids in the land now known as Egypt. Joseph, son of Ephraim, is the one who established the religious practices of Egypt. The story of Joseph and his coat of many colors was borrowed by the Hebrews in later years to give their faith a backbone. They claimed Joseph to be the son of Israel, Jacob. Joseph, however, was not even Hebrew. He was, however, born into the Hebrew nation by way of marriage. Ancient Egypt has forgotten its true heritage in God's kingdom, for Joseph built the entire city of Giza as a gift to our Father. Inside your pyramids are the secrets to the universe, yet your scientists and archaeologists have no clue how to unlock them. That which is soon to be walking among you as Christ will open the gates to all of the records of your time. It will be the Melchizedek who teaches willing students how to create life from nothing but numbers. So it is, just as it was, that mankind has before it the golden opportunity to join the heavenly chorus in body and mind as well as spirit. After Joseph came the rule of King Tut. He was not of your world. He had been granted permission to come and guide mankind to the knowledge of one God, one people. Now I said King Tut, I really got like Tutankhamun, but we didn't have the time to look up the spelling, and I was moving so fast that I already knew him, I'm already speaking. This is just coming straight out of me, so we just didn't wait for it to happen. We just shortened it. Everyone knows King Tut anyways. It was after his untimely death in a game that the people grew to resent the abolishing of their idols. It was then that they began to destroy the good name of the house of Tutankhamun. Years later there came Ra, one of 8th density, to restore man's faith in our Father. Little did we know that they would cast him as a god among men and bow down before him. This saddened Ra, as he had hoped to bring man back to accordance with God. So sad was he that he aborted the mission and refused to return. He did communicate recently in your years to make right what he felt he had made wrong. This was and is the only time he has spoken. Many have since claimed his name, some out of respect and others to beguile. In the days of the mighty Poseidon was established the Isles of Atlantis. He was a wise and generous king, knowing only one God in heaven and only one people under him. Atlantis was a thriving mecca of technological advancements. They unlocked the power of flight through the beating of tones and crystals. As time marched on, there came to be dissension among the inhabitants of Atlantis. In their secluded environment did they evolve their bodies to a state of 6th density. As beings of light, they began to enslave the more primitive man to do their work, as they had trouble with not being in a purely physical form. Amelius, once called Adam, was the great teacher of one. It was Amelius who restored so many of the gross experiments back to the state of usefulness. He ushered in a wave of majesty and grace that has not been seen since. Years after Amelius departed, for he was not found in death, but was escorted by a chariot back to the heavens, came there to be that which is known as Belial. Enoch from your scriptures suffered the same fate as Amelius, for he was not found in death, but was also escorted to the halls of heaven. Back to Belial, history has lost so much of. He was wicked and vain, and did he seek total enslavement of mankind? Still, yet did the followers of one remain, and defiant they were. They saw man for the grace that we had intended, and struggled to make them free. Plato did tell of this in his day, but so much was lost in the burning of Alexandria. Belial, in his disgusting mannerisms, decided to just kill all of mankind rather than allow them freedom. It was he and his people who trained the crystal-powered lasers onto the earth in search of any man, woman, or child. This did prove to be most unfortunate, for their lasers bore into Earth's belly, and she became with a grievous sore. So violent was the lasers that your precious Gaia did bleed rivers of hot molten blood. Upon the face of the earth did she bleed. All of life was nearly extinguished, save for Noah and his ark. The ark was that which was given him by the peaceful Arcturians. In the ships of Noah was modern man as you know it. The Arcturians took of Noah and their own kind, and gifted him 3 sons and daughters. When he returned to earth, he found those who had survived by burrowing into the core of Mother Earth. To this day do they remain. Hathor was their gracious leader, and it was he and Noah who sought to rebuild Mother Earth back to her glory. Hathor then allowed his people to begin the repopulation of the planet, and it was Noah's sons and daughters who became the rulers of Europe, Asia, and Africa. This is that which the Mayans call the day of creation, not the creation attributed to the dwindling era, but the beginning of all the eras. And it was in this day that the Arcturians became one with man. Joyful was the celebration in heaven, for in this came the knowledge that darkness could not win. The Arcturian gift gave man the 7 active spiritual centers, with the capacity to unlock all 12, if diligent they be. The 12 chakras are congruent with the 12 rays of creation. Your color scheme is not quite right, but serves you just the same. It was now that groups like the Nordics and the Arcturians could willfully inhabit the body of man. Rushing in did they come, for the assistance of mankind was the most noble of pursuits, for God had found favor to be among his children of earth. Insomuch was the flood of support that we had to bestow guardians with the task of maintaining a stable population for Mother Earth to continue to recover from Belial. These guardians are they 12, just as it is with us. Watch they over the records of your time and the management of your numbers. Counsel are they known by, but beyond labels are they. With the invention of blacksmithing did mankind go strong. Prosperous were they until the sorrowful arrival of that which you call the Palladians. In ships did they come, having bodies identical to man's. Greed and envy consumed their hearts. Who was man among creation to be favored so? Was their creed. And from that moment sought they to destroy what we had built. With the Elohim did they consort, plotting the undoing of all that had been achieved among the days of man. And so, just as with Adam and Emilius, God delivered unto man a Savior. Bringing light as a mighty warrior of peace was their Vishnu. Battling the seeds of corruption and destitute hearts, Vishnu woke up the sleeping Christ's mind for the first of three times. And I believe you will, if you read the Seth Speaks material, you will get confirmation as well that there are three Christ. And two have since come. One is, yes. With a loud shout of the trumpet did graves burst open, and did man first commune with the Father in heaven, needing no longer a mediator. Vishnu, so true and brave, did suffer at the hands of those who refused to awaken from the depths of spiritual decay. Now, I'm just going to throw this in there. I don't know if it's going to come up. I'm sure it will. What I got with his death, Vishnu, or her death, I'm not given a gender, was torn asunder and spread throughout all the corners of the globe. And I believe this was also a similar death that occurred for Osiris. And Osiris's death was a recalling of Vishnu's. Osiris was also an incarnation of the Creator's Son, as was Vishnu. And so you can see how some of the stuff is repeating. Let us continue. We're nearly done with what we have so far. And so in the beginning was there Vishnu the Christ, who did first establish union between God and man. Angels did they sing and rejoice, knowing that the plan of the Ancient of Days had begun. And so now we approach the days of Lucifer and his passion. Centuries and millennia that buried in the sands of time the doings of Vishnu the Christ. The Elohim, along with their Palladian subjects, had gained a foothold in the minds of man once again. Lucifer, the bright morning star, did descend from worlds yet unknown to man to again deliver freedom to those who would have it. His passion, however, was his undoing, for he so loved the men, women, and children that it was used against him. So strong was the demonic influence of the Elohim that many lives were ransomed for the departing of the blessed Son of God. So sad was he that to save his children was to condemn them to hell. If he had stayed, their mortal bodies would they have to forfeit, as the Elohim threatened total annihilation. Deep is the wound in his side. The spear to the side of Jesus was intended as an insult to him. O blessed Lucifer, Son of God. That's what we got. 35 minutes of just mind-boggling stuff. Some of it's totally new to me. I was not too familiar with anything with Vishnu. I mean, I knew that Vishnu was an incarnation of the Creator Son from earlier work. I had never heard of anyone named Khan or Uad. The timelines, I didn't know what the timelines were, and all this stuff is coming out. I mean, I knew that Lucifer was not the villain. I mean, his name is Lightbringer, bringer of light. I knew that was what I believe to be the great deception. The fact that people have been proclaiming the Elohim to be God and have been claiming God to be the devil. And this is also alluded to in the Gnostic text. I believe it's the Gospel of Peter or Philip. And they talk about how the demiurge, the archons took that which was good and made it bad, and took which was bad and made it good. So people, ever since this time, have been condemning Lucifer, the bringer of light, and convinced he's the devil, and have been offering their prayers to the house of El, which is the Elohim, who, think about it. It makes total sense if you're a mastermind hell-bent on destroying everything and controlling everything in all of the world. These beings live hundreds of thousands of years. So, and they are 8th density. I mean, they barely have bodies at all. But they still travel in ships. They're not totally able to just boom, 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 on a physical level. Mentally, they could travel, I'm sure, anywhere they wanted. Anyways, let's get off the subject. There you have it. That's the material. I hope to be updating the blog with it all soon. Let me know what you think. With that, I love you all. You are never alone. Always with you. Namaste.